Reviewing your state's WIOA Unified or Combined State Plan from a disability perspective. WIOA Title I, Workforce Development Activities. This WIOA Guide tutorial is brought to you by the National Center on Leadership for the Employment and Economic Advancement of People with Disabilities, a collaborative of disability, workforce, and economic empowerment organizations led by National Disability Institute with funding from U.S. Department of Labor's Office of Disability Employment Policy. Background. On July 22, 2014, President Obama signed the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, commonly known as WIOA. WIOA was the first legislative reform of the public workforce system in more than 15 years. WIOA reaffirms the role of the customer-focused one-stop delivery system, a cornerstone of the public workforce development system, and enhances and increases coordination among several key employment, education, and training programs. WIOA presents an extraordinary opportunity for the workforce system to accelerate its transformational efforts and demonstrate its ability to improve job and career options for all Americans, including those with disabilities, through an integrated, job-driven public workforce system that links diverse talent to our nation's businesses. To achieve this goal, WIOA requires an integrated approach to the implementation, administration, service delivery, and evaluation of the services provided under the core programs at the federal, state, and local levels. Integration of the core programs essential to the effective operation of the workforce development system is achieved through the development of a unified or combined state plan, the implementation of a common performance accountability system, and the design of the one-stop service delivery system. To facilitate the integration of the core programs, the Departments of Labor and Education have jointly developed requirements specifically related to the Unified and Combined State Plan, Performance Accountability System, and one-stop requirements. WIOA requires the governor of each state to submit a unified or combined state plan to the Secretary of the Department of Labor that outlines a 4-year strategy for the state's workforce development system. States must have approved state plans in place to receive funding for the 6 core programs under WIOA. In order to ensure that these unified or combined state plans meet their requirements in terms of including the needs of individuals with disabilities, the LEAD Center has created a guide. This guide can be used by local and state disability-related stakeholders as a tool when reviewing their state's plan and to help facilitate the development of comments if they wish to submit input to their Workforce Investment Board or their governor's office. The purpose of this short tutorial is to give you an idea of how to best use the guide. The slides provided are just a sample of the more comprehensive guide provided through the link below. Let's get started. It is important to note that the areas in the slides that are italicized represent examples of how certain requirements could be met, but are not explicit requirements stated in the law or in the rules and regulations. The instructions in developing the unified or combined state plans are divided into 2 main sections: strategic and operational requirements and elements. The strategic elements consist of the workforce analysis, state strategic vision and goals, state performance goals, and state strategy. Under each section, the guide provides the requirements that should be included in your state's unified or combined state plan, then poses questions that assist in determining whether or not your state's unified or combined state plan meets the specified requirements and/or includes individuals with disabilities. As an example, let's take a look at the workforce analysis requirements. The guide describes the requirement related to the workforce analysis in the following way. The state plan must include an analysis of the current workforce, including individuals with disabilities and other individuals with barriers to employment. It must also include employment and unemployment statistics, labor market trends, education and skills levels of the workforce, and skills gaps. Now that we understand the specifics of the requirement, what might we want to ask ourselves to determine if the state's Unified or Combined State Plan meets the requirement related to the workforce analysis and includes individuals with disabilities? According to the guide, we would want to ask, does the state's plan's workforce analysis of the current workforce include an analysis of information about individuals with disabilities, including youth with disabilities and other individuals with barriers to employment? What might that look like? The guide offers the following examples on how a state might fulfill that requirement. It is important to note that the examples are italicized, meaning that while they could be used to meet the requirement, that specific information may not be required. They include the number of individuals working in non-integrated settings and those being compensated through a 14C certificate. They may also include the number of individuals involved in other post-secondary education and job training programs that may serve individuals who often do not attend four-year colleges, community colleges, and/or trade schools. The guide goes on to examine the requirements related to the operational planning elements as well. Those include state board functions, coordination, alignment, and provisions of services to individuals, membership of state board, addressing the accessibility of the one-stop delivery system, and use of governor's set-aside funds. As an example, let's look at the guide's description of the state board functions that should be included in the state's Unified or Combined State Plan and what they should include related to individuals with disabilities. State board functions focus on developing and continually improving the workforce development system by, 1, identifying and disseminating best practices for service delivery, including strategies for serving individuals with disabilities and other individuals with barriers to employment. It also includes developing strategies to implement technological improvements that facilitate access to services and activities, including improvements to ensure technology is accessible to individuals with disabilities. Now that we understand the requirement, what might we want to ask ourselves when reviewing the state plan related to state board functions? The guide suggests, does the state plan's description of state board functions include the development of strategies to support career pathways for the purpose of providing job seekers, including those with disabilities, with workforce development services, education, and supportive services to enter or retain employment? Again, these were just a couple examples of how the guide can be used to examine your state's Unified or Combined State Plan. Additional resources can be found through the following links. For additional information, please refer to the LEAD Center website or contact LEAD staff. Thank you.